Good evening and welcome to this webinar. So if you would like to open, that's so fantastic. So please open your cameras. That feels so much better. So we can communicate, we can connect a little bit. I would really appreciate that. Oh, fantastic. You know, when I do my training classes and I speak to real people, that's a different thing than just talking to a black screen. So how are you doing, guys? I hope you are all well.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right. So where are you connecting? So Manish, where are you located?
I am myself in Minnesota right now.
All right. And then we have Gabrielle Spencer. Where are you at?
I'm connecting from South Carolina.
Oh, cool. And then we have Melody Merino.
I'm
Where are
in
you from?
Pennsylvania.
All right, cool. Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm really happy that we are here, and I'm going to talk about Scrum, right? So, and I'm going to talk about Scrum from the perspective of a developer, right? So, and in that, who I am, let me just show you this quickly. So I am this guy here. I'm Axel Berle. So I'm a Scrum trainer for Simpliaxis. And so I do a lot of training for Scrum Masters, product owners, but the training class that I most enjoy is actually for the developers. And so the thing is, maybe we can just directly jump into this. Maybe just a quick question. So which of you is a developer? Is there someone a developer among you guys? Is anyone? Right? Maybe a tester, maybe a UX, anything? Is someone involved in product work, or is maybe there's a Scrum Master? So anyone would like to share? Yeah, please.
I worked in the capacity of a QA tester and also as a product management, part of the product management team. So I've been a part of their launch, demo, VOC, those kind of processes.
All right. Okay, good. So if you are from that angle, so you might be joining a Scrum team as a developer then. Because when we're talking Scrum, we are, on one hand, I'm going to talk a little bit about that exactly. So the thing is, it's a framework for building products, right? And so anyone who is actually getting their hands dirty with the product, like programming, testing, specifying, so that person is considered a developer, right? So, but let's jump right in and let me share you a little bit. So what Scrum is after all. So what is that thing? So it's for building products. So my style, let me show you a little bit my style of training. So I work very visually. So all my training courses are really visual, and I like to draw. So this is a very visual style of teaching. So what is Scrum? So if you were to explain to someone what is Scrum, you could say, well, it's a framework for actually managing the work of products, of creating products, right? So it's, well, but we already have the traditional way of managing that stuff, but Scrum is a little bit different here because Scrum, we have two kinds of plans. So we have a high level plan, right? And you can see this like a wish list of things that we would like to have for our product, right? And this is a plan for achieving something, right? To achieve a goal. And we call this goal the product goal. So here we have it. So, and what is a product goal then, right? You could say, well, product goal, when we're talking about complex work, what we need is a description of success. The problem is that in complexity, you cannot actually specify exactly how the solution should look like. So we need a very high level, almost kind of a visionary description of where we want to go. So we have on one hand, we have this high level plan. And this is just this ordered wish list. So, and the thing is, and here is Scrum really different. Do we deliver that stuff in one go? And the thing is, no, in Scrum, we are working in cycles. So we are actually delivering our work in cycles. So, and each cycle is like a work unit. So we deliver something in that cycle. And here, and each cycle starts by building a small plan, right? And this is also a small plan to achieve something within that small interval. So here we have a small goal. So, and the thing is, when we're talking about complexity, how can we know that we actually achieved that small goal? Well, the thing is, if we want to verify if we actually achieved that goal, we need to do this by delivering something concrete, right? And we call this technically, oh, that's the product increment. But actually, this is just a small version of the product we're trying to build. And by doing this, we get some feedback from just a second. So we'll be learning about the product, right? So we get some feedback from here. Where does this feedback go, actually? Well, it goes back into this high-level plan. And when we create our small goal, well, we get our information from that wish list. So now with our learnings, what do we do? Well, it's when we're working in cycles, it's a rinse-repeat thing. So again, we create a new small plan, right, to achieve a small intermediate goal. And again, as I just told, well, how do we know if we actually achieved something? Well, we show it. And we learn by feedback, right? So here we do that again. So we get feedback, and this here will be reflected again in that plan. And how do we create this? Well, first of all, we need to look at our wish list. So this is the way that we are working. So that's the very first definition of Scrum. It's a way of managing work where we at the same time, we have this high-level planning and an ongoing process of creating small-term plans. Okay, so let's have a look. How does this relate to the traditional way of working? So if you have been involved in traditional project management, well, what happens actually? You have this one person with authority, right, managing the project. So a typical project manager, right? Okay, so the thing is, traditional management, product development is very plan-based. So we start working with this shiny, nice plan. And as a project manager, what you do, well, you deliver against the plan. So, and hopefully you have your product in the end, right here, right? So, and how does the project manager actually do direct work on the product? What do you think, Manish? Does a project manager actually do product work? Not really, right? So what do we do as project managers? Well, I've been a project manager a short time period. So what I did, well, I had people who actually did the work. So here they are. And usually we call them resources. Okay. So I have my plan, and now I can orchestrate the work. So I assign work, right, nicely. Everybody gets a piece of work to do. And in the end, hopefully, we have success. So let me ask you a question. What is success for a project manager? How can we define success here?
For a project manager, wouldn't it be successful if they finish their the project on time and under budget?
Exactly. So this is the definition of success for that kind of work. So we have scope as defined by a plan, right? And based on the scope, we define the timeline, right? The time we have, and the budget, right? So this is our famous, the three constraints, the iron triangle of project management. So in that specific case, success is the delivery. Can we agree on that? So whenever we deliver in that conditions, that's success, right? All right. The thing is, this works in certain conditions. And this only works actually when whatever we are trying to deliver is actually a valuable thing, right? So we have this model of complexity, right? So we have the simple work, we have complicated work, and for this area that we call, well, the complicated and the simple area, for this kind of work, this is actually possible, but only because we know what to deliver and we know how to deliver this. So that's an important if, right? So the thing is, when we go into the realm of complexity, we have the challenge that we don't really know. The thing that we are delivering has never been built before. We're talking product innovation, we're talking new things. And software is usually part of that domain of work, the work where we cannot really be sure if it's going to be a success. So how is then Scrum approaching work now? So the idea with Scrum is that we say we cannot rely only on one person to do the thinking. So in traditional management, who is accountable for the success? Who is the single ringable neck? Who is that?
The project manager?
That's the project manager, right? So, and the thing is now, and this is also like a core belief when we talk about complexity. Complexity, one single brain. So here we have this one single brain, right? Our project manager doing all the thinking, right? And then we have the people that we call the resources. They do the doing, right? That's a traditional approach. Someone there takes all the strategic decisions, makes the thinking, creates a plan, and then someone executes the stuff. In complexity, one single brain is not enough. So what we want to do, we want to find a way of working where we can harness the collective intelligence. So instead of having one single person responsible, in Scrum, the whole Scrum team is responsible. And that's the big difference. So how did this actually come to life? So who invented, how has Scrum been invented? Actually, this was in the 80s, in 86. There was a couple of researchers who observed how certain companies changed this model. The problem with this model, if you work like that, you have this long time from idea to product, and this can take years. Back in the days, we're talking the 90s. So if you were developing a new product, that could be like a couple of years, right? And by working in these silos, right, and in stages, we have the problem that the time to market is really high. So the time it takes from idea to product, and that's too long. So back in the days, they said we have to cut this chain, because this chain, this sequence of stages just takes too long. If you have a problem in one of the latest stages, you have to rework all that has been done before. So this kind of feedback is too slow. And thus they took a very radical approach. And the idea is, so why do we keep these people separated in silos? How about we just bring them all together in one team? So that's the basic crazy idea, right? So basically we take someone from here, right? So that might be the product owner, right? So what person that we call today the product owner. So we take all these developers and say, well, instead of waiting, right, that the idea is coming to you, we are going to join, we are going to put you in one single team. So here we have the guys doing the work, right? So they all is one, this is the bunch of people that we call now the developers, right? These are developers. And we have one person here that we call the product owner. That's the person with a certain responsibility. So as product owner, what we do now, we say, well, you as product owner, you are going to tell the direction of the product. So you are going to own the product. But there is one important distinction between a project manager and the product owner, is that as product owner, you own the product, but just the product, not the team. So that's a real big difference between a traditional project manager. So we are removing a little bit of the power from a project manager. So as product owner, your responsibility is to make sure that the right product is being developed. So here we have him. And then we have, on the other hand, we have all the developers bunched together, and they have the responsibility to develop the product right. What does it mean, the product right? It means that they have all the technical skills to actually build the product, right? So they independently can build it, and they are collectively responsible for the technical quality. So these guys are called the developers. It's a collective role. But then we have a problem. And this is what they discovered also. When you work like that, you have on one hand, guys responsible for the doing of the work. On the other hand, we have someone responsible for defining what the product actually is. Yeah, what does it mean to define what the product is? So as a product owner, you have to understand what are the needs of the people for whom we are building the product. So what are their needs, right? And you're also responsible to define the financial aspect, right? Your job is to make sure that you maximize the value of the product. So, and here we're talking money, profitability, and all that stuff. So imagine now you're working in one team, and that's one guy, right? Talking money, talking opportunities, right? Oh, we have to deliver. We have a deadline, right? The clients demand that, and all that stuff. On the other hand, we have all these developers, and they want to deliver something nice, something that works, something with quality. So they will be pushing against each other, right? So we need someone to help to make sure that there is a good relationship between, so like kind of a balance between these two powers. And here we have our dear Scrum Master, right? So the Scrum Master will make sure that the whole team works at the right pace, right? So, and here you have it. So this here represents our Scrum team, and it's like one collective brain now. So instead of having one single person being responsible for doing the thinking, we have now a whole collective team. And it's really so the magic and the power of a Scrum team is to unlock this this crowd intelligence, if you like. So that's really the secret sauce. So So how does that all relate to our trainings and what? So let's talk a little bit more then about the developers. So, but if you look at these training courses here now, so on one hand, we need to understand how does a Scrum Master do all that stuff, right? Because as a Scrum Master, you are a certain type of leader. You are a leader, a learning leader. It's all about learning. In complexity, it's all about learning. You're also responsible as a Scrum Master to make sure that you have a motivated team, that this balance within that team is actually working. So that's an interesting role. It's really a people person role. So if you like that, then you might want to go to a Scrum Master class to understand, to go deep on being a Scrum Master. On the other hand, if you like products, if you want to understand how you make sure that the right product is being developed, well then that might be a training course interesting for you. So, but I would like to talk a bit more about the developers now. So the certifications that we know in the industry that are most known are, first of all, the Scrum Master, right? Certified Scrum Master. So you probably have heard of this certification, or haven't you? The Certified Scrum Master, anyone? Right, so cool. But after a while, companies realized, okay, we need someone who knows how to teach and take care of the team and make sure that the team becomes really an effective team. But we have to make sure that the product is right. It doesn't help if we have a fantastic team and we are delivering the wrong product. So, and then companies started to rethink this and say, okay, guys, we also have to invest in these kind of people, because the product owner is also definitely is a leadership role, a very interesting one. So I've been working now for more than 20 years as a developer, right? And so now I'm shifting into that role as a product owner, but I'm still am developing in a Scrum team. So, but what we also noticed is, of course, for this to work, all three perspectives need to understand what Scrum is, and each of these perspectives has its own challenges. So, and who has thought about the developers? I mean, should we only certify and train Scrum Masters, only the product owners? And how about the developers, right? And so I can tell you from experience that if you want to be successful in a Scrum team, you definitely have to know the specific challenges of a developer. So just to let's talk a little bit about the challenges of a developer. Can you imagine what are actually the challenges of developers? Anyone? Let's see if I fix this. So one of the big challenges is that we as developers, we are working in cycles, right? So if you look big picture, what happens? You have this wish list, right? So we have, let's say we want to develop this. This is a requirement. Here's another requirement. All things that we have to deliver somehow. So imagine this is our product backlog. So can be big wishes, small wishes, all different kinds of things. And as a Scrum team, we have some hard constraints. And the constraints are the following. So we working, as we said, we are working in cycles. And in the beginning of each cycle, we have a planning event. It's called sprint planning. So in sprint planning, what we do, we have this very small bucket. This is our capacity. This is what we are going to commit to as a team. So during this planning session, so we have the product owner, right? And the product owner says, well, so my role is to tell you what is the next most important thing to do. And this is why we have this list here that is ordered. So smart product owner, right? He said, okay, I want this here. So he says, guys, this is the important thing that we need to do. All right, let's change the color. That one. So, and here we have our poor developers, right? And they have the task now to turn this, whatever they put into their bucket, they have to develop, they have to deliver this, they have to put this, very bluntly speaking, into something that works. From the point of view of the user, should be able, it should be something that is usable. So, can you see the problem, guys? What's the problem here?
They only have that time box to work within, that sprint cycle.
Yes, and that's a tough challenge. So because that's cycle, so we have this time box here, and that's fixed. That's fixed. So once you choose this as a team, you're fixed. So it might be 2 weeks, it might be 1 week, it might be at max 1 month. So, and how can you know? How can you do that? How can you know? How can you commit to something like that? You have this, maybe this big chunk of thing, and you have to turn it something valuable. Anyone, any idea? How do we do that? It's easy to say, right? Ah, just develop that stuff. So, and any ideas? Oh, I have someone in the chat. Let's see. Size it. Okay. Okay, let's imagine we size it. Okay, have you heard of these famous sizing methods like story points, right? So, but what's the basic question here? Right? We have to make sure that whenever we commit to that, it at least that we think it fits into that bucket. So we have to size. Okay. So, but how can we know? Does it fit? Let's size it. Okay, that's a big one, and that's a small one. So, and how can we do that? So this is one of the this is one of the challenges that we have with working as a developer. And the idea is, so we have to refine it. So we call this activity, we call this product backlog refine. So before we go and commit to something like an item like that, what we do is we have a discussion. So this is product backlog refinement. Product backlog refinement. So what we do, we take one of these items and say, all right. So as a product owner, I might say, guys, this is something that I would like to develop in the future, right? We need this. And then you have a discussion. So the developers will start asking questions. So how does it work? Can you give me an example? And so lots of questions. This is, and very often people use a format called user stories, right? But user stories, it's not a specification technique, it's a conversation technique. A user story is basically a reminder that you have to discuss it at the right time. So what we do then, we have this conversation, right, between product owner, right, and here we have all the developers. So we all spend time discussing these items. So we want to understand what it's really about. So we detail stuff. So, and what do we do after detailing it? So we understand it now. So, and what do we do now? What is the big question that I am going to ask as a product owner?
Prioritizing it?
Well, yeah, that might be a question, but what's the big concern? I want to know, can you actually deliver that in one sprint? That's like the core problem. So is it big or is it small? That's what I'm asking, right, as a product owner. And they might say, way too big. No way. And that's okay for the developers to say that, right? Because it's the developers who have to commit to actually delivering this. So, and if people say it's too big, so what do we do now? So because sizing will give you just an indication. It's too big or not too big. And if they say it's too big, so what do we? So what's the idea then?
Break the story down into smaller stories.
So we have to kind of making it small. And here we have the first challenge. Let me see if I can challenge you. If that story was a big elephant, how would you then split it?
You slice the functionality of that particular
Okay,
user
so-
story.
Okay, so you slice it, right? But how would you slice it? Would you take the first leg and then the next leg? So what would be your strategy?
One is the end user, how they use it, like their the functionality that they need. Then it could be the error handling, and then it could
Okay.
also be data validation. So syntactical, basically. It could be the different buckets of functionality that you need to slice it up as.
All right, so you're talking slicing by value, but that's the thing. But let me see if I can entrap you. So because we have to look at this. So this is specifically for the developers that I'm talking of. And we as developers, we are a little bit biased. Let's imagine that we have the following product architecture. Imagine this is the product. And imagine that this product has a certain internal architecture. Maybe you have heard of front-end layers, the UI, and we're talking maybe, so the business logic layer, and maybe the persistence layer. So have you heard something like that? Layered architectures? Some product architectures? Anyone?
Yep.
Okay. So what developers would usually like to do if they have to split this? How do you think they would split it? So let me ask you if you think this is okay. Imagine we say, okay, it's too big, right? It is. Oh, just a second, guys. My tablet is a bit crazy today. So let's imagine they say, let's do the following. We split it like that, right? So because it's easy to split, right? So we can work only on the UI. So we start here. Oh. So we start here. Then we can split this in backend stuff. And then we could split this in database stuff. So we could first of all do this, maybe in sprint number 1. And this we could do in sprint number 2. And then maybe this in sprint number 3. Right? So the 3 pieces will be divided and separated on 3 different weeks or 3 different sprints. Is that a valid approach? Yeah, Kashana.
I was going to say no, because if you do it in this sequence, that means you're going to have a user interface that's not operable. So it would be best to start with basically backwards, start with the database first, work on the back end. However, depending on how it's prioritized, you can work simultaneously on the UI and the back end stories, but essentially understand the back end first.
Okay.
And then apply the UI to it.
Okay, tell me if that would be like a valid approach. So you start from here, first that, and then you work your way up. Is that your approach?
That's my approach to the discussion. The user interface would be, I mean, like I've worked on front end development before, so that's essentially the last thing. Like if I'm working through a process, I wouldn't want to spend time, like I would spend time on the prototype for the UI, but I would first want to make sure that we can make the back end of it operate correctly before we start to create buttons and progression screens and things like that.
Okay, so your idea is interesting, but I think I got you here. So the thing, I mean, I think you are maybe probably we are on the same page here. So the idea is, and this is also for, and this is a challenge for many developers. We actually have to split radically like that. So we have to develop a small piece of value. So whatever we deliver should be in itself usable. So basically it means we need a little bit of UI, a little bit of business logic, and a little bit of persistence, a little bit of backend. And that's something that can be technically challenging, right? So this is a very different thinking for developers. So I found this fascinating when I started with that, because I couldn't really imagine how can you split things actually, right? So because whatever we deliver, right, we have to deliver this as a small, and this is why I like to use the elephant metaphor, right? It's something very small, right? But it's something complete. And then again, so the next iteration, we put a layer of functionality on top, and this should be working too. And then again, so our elephant is growing, right? So here we are again, a little bit more. So the way that we have to switch our thinking is really to grow a product. And growing a product is actually something that really is something typical of complexity, right? So we're growing, it's like growing like an animal, like a plant, right? So our product should be able to do that. Okay, so now, from a point of view of developer, we need to learn certain new techniques for that, right? And so we're talking about stuff like we need to learn to stub, like mocking. We have to, and that also implies, if we want to be able to do that, we have to change our product architecture. We need an agile architecture, an architecture that allows us to do this. And there is a definition for what is agility then, right? So agility is actually a way of working, a way of building products that allows us to change with ease, right? So we call software soft because it is in the very beginning infinitely changeable, right? But if you have been working in software projects, over time, does software stay soft? What happens with software over time if you don't take care of it? Anyone? What's the challenge with software? Anyone has worked in software? What happens with products usually over time? Are they easy to change after some time? Any experience with that? Have you heard of the legacy? What's a legacy product? Anyone? It's a product that nobody likes to work. Isn't so, Kashana?
I was going to say, yes, I work in insurance, but we have a lot of legacy systems in the industry. And it's basically, so as you were saying, like it was once software, but over time, it's hard to either integrate with a newer system, or it's hard to input new data integrations with it. So over time, you just have to kind of build a completely new system to not necessarily replicate it, but enhance it.
Yeah, so this happens very often. But this is still, and the cause of that is what we call technical debt, right? It's actually a sequence of decisions that paints you actually into a corner, right? So we need, so it's lacking certain techniques, certain software engineering techniques, for example, like test automation. So if you want to change something, it's a risk. You take the risk of breaking something. So people say like, oh no, I don't want to touch it. It's just too risky, right? And so, and now imagine that you want, if we're talking Scrum, It literally means having a new release each sprint. It doesn't mean that you have to actually release it, right? But from a technical standpoint, it's really creating a new version of your product each sprint. So, and this is where also where, let's say, the big benefit of Scrum lies. So whenever you want to release a new version into production, you have the choice to do this from a strategic standpoint and not from a technical standpoint. So when we're talking legacy, it also means that we have a delivery debt. So I like to talk about this technical debt. It's a central problem, and this is central in my training course. When we're talking technical debt, we have a knowledge debt, right? Does your team still know what the software is all about? Or do we have a knowledge silo somewhere? Is that the one guy who knows that part of the software and nobody else? That means you have actually a knowledge debt. In Scrum teams, we manage that actively. We want to make sure that the knowledge is well distributed. And then we have another debt, which is I mentioned the delivery debt. How easy or how difficult is it to put a new version into production? So here we're talking techniques like DevOps techniques, and these are so Scrum teams need to have a basic understanding of these concepts, right? And here we're talking continuous integration. These are all techniques that allows you to deliver without having any pain points here, right? So this is an act. So as a Scrum team, you want to learn always, and learning on all these edges, right? So how can I deliver more easier? How can I communicate better with our code? And when we're talking knowledge debt, it's actually something that we as developers, we have the responsibility to control. And here we're talking techniques like clean coding, right? How do we make our code easy to understand? Because only when it's easy to understand, it's easy to change. And then we have the change debt. How easy or how difficult is it to change your code, right? So here we need to understand different testing techniques. We need to understand, how can I test? So unit testing, right? And even so, unit testing has been around a long time, but it's still not really understood. Many companies, they use it very timidly. And the basic unit test is simple. But when you do this like in real world application, then you start understanding that it can be actually really hard, right? So how can you test in isolation? That's the challenge. We want to be able to test each new functionality, each new technical component, so that it will be easy to change it. A test helps you in two ways. One part of it is to make sure that you don't break something, right? So that's one kind of test. But you have another kind of test that allows you to specify what you actually want. So as a Scrum team, we use a test-first approach, right? So test-first on technical level, we call it TDD, test-driven development. And then we also, on business level, on specification level, we use techniques like BDT. So these things we talk in our training courses. So if you look at all these things that you definitely have to learn and become really strong in a Scrum team, is to automate your tests, to start writing tests even before you actually start coding, right? You need to be able to make your code easy to change. So here we're talking certain design principles that allow. So for example, maybe you have heard of the dependency injection, version of control. These are the basic techniques that allows you to test your code better, and that reflects on your structure. This the whole the code base will be. It's a different design of working. And then we're talking also continuous integration. So because you will be working together with other guys on the same product at the same time. So how do you coordinate all that? And in a Scrum team, you don't have this nice sequence. Oh, I do this and then I test it. It's much more chaotic. It's much more unstructured. And there is another aspect what we as Scrum developers have to learn, and that is that we have to change the way that we work together. We have to collaborate on a deeper level, and that also means we need to new coding techniques. So what comes to your mind when we talk about different ways of collaborating in a Scrum team? What do you think? What am I talking about? Anyone? Maybe you have heard of pair programming, something like that. Have you ever tried anyone who has tried pair programming? And that's something that we do in our teams constantly. What does it mean? I mean, pair programming. Well, actually, it's to program with two people. And the trick is that two people will be working on the same thing. So it's basically two brains, one computer. And this is a fundamental technique. And so it sounds kind of crazy because, I mean, if you have ever programmed, you will see that you have this deep concentration that you need, right? It's like writing a book, something like that. How can you do this with other people at the same time? But this is something that you can train. It actually can be tricky in the beginning, but after a while, that's something that is really, really valuable. And also what you have to learn is to understand, well, do we always need to do that? Or are there certain circumstances where we should be just keep working on our alone? So, and this is also, this is why we need to understand also complexity here. So complex stuff where we're kind of lost, when we have so many different options to consider. This is a situation where I definitely favor pair programming. So I'm so used to it when working in our teams that whenever I feel the topic is tricky, and it's not necessarily a programming topic, it can be anything. When the topic is really overwhelming, I need a team. I need other people to bounce ideas around, get other opinions, and then start doing this together. So it's really it's more a collective way of working. And then we have, and when we do this with more than two people, we call it actually mob programming, right? Anyway, so I hope so. I'm at the end of my little presentation. So what I wanted to convey only is that Scrum, it's a way of working, building products where we heavily rely on collaboration. It's not a linear way of working. It's very much collaborative. And it's really interesting. It's highly motivating. People that switch to working in a Scrum team, they usually don't want to go back. It's very, you start building a really tight-knit team. And it feels great. If it works, it feels really great. It can go wrong also, right? So you need the support of a Scrum Master, you need a good product owner, and then it can be really delightful to work like that. So, but for this to work, to be able to deliver each sprint a new usable product version, you need to learn new techniques. So that's from my own experience as a Scrum developer, right? So you need to understand the techniques that allows you to keep software soft so that it doesn't become a legacy product. When we speak about legacy products, it basically means, well, someone didn't take care of the product the right way. So that means new testing techniques, new collaboration techniques, new techniques like continuous integration, new feedback methods, also talking about new delivery methods. And as a Scrum team, it's a learning team. So technologies change all the time. So this is part of our work as a developer. Part of this is really learning, right? So Scrum is this approach for building products in the complex world. The complex world is where we lack knowledge. We need to learn. So, and Scrum teams, why do we have success as a Scrum team? And why is this interesting for companies? Because actually, so the challenge in the end is, as a Scrum team, to outlearn the competition, right? And this is really the secret of a Scrum team. It's learning and becoming and being able to leverage this one big brain that we are as a Scrum team. So anyway, so this is so what we teach. So my next training course, if that interests you, if you would like to participate, this is this weekend. So we offer weekend classes. And so we teach Scrum, right? So we'll be spending quite some time to really teach Scrum as it is meant to be, and then we start we start with the practical part. So we are actually doing pair programming, and we're using a programming platform, and you can use any kind of programming language that you're used to, and this might be interesting for testers also. Testers, developers, front and back end. So the techniques that we teach are very general. Like, so we practice the basics of unit testing, and we also have given an introduction to TDD, how this works, hands-on, and also give an introduction to BDD. And so we are going to practice all these things. And yes, if you're interested, guys, here we have the link. Let me drop this here in the chat, right? So and so we have a discount coupon, webinar 10, and yeah. So and by the way, I'm going to also give you the access to this mirror board. So if you want to have a look, here we have the links for the next training courses. Here have the discount coupon. Here you have my contact data also if you were to connect. And that's it, guys. My question, do you have any more questions? Please feel free. We have some minutes left. Anything you would like to discuss?
I have
Anyone?
a question for
Yes, please.
TDD and BDD. What
Yeah.
do those acronyms stand for?
So TDD is test-driven development. So it's the idea that you start with a test and let the test guide you. So it's a very bottom-up approach. BDD is actually the same approach, but from a business, so it's much higher level. It's more like a specification approach, and it's called behavior-driven development. So with BDD, you also start actually with a test, but it's a business-oriented test. So maybe you have heard of Gherkin, this given, when, then scenarios. Have you heard of that?
Yes.
All right. So this is the thing is, it takes some practice. It takes some understanding to use this correctly. BDD has been very often abused, kind of, right? So BDD it's three things at the same time. First of all, it's a discovery method. It helps product discovery, right? Because it's a very fine-grained analysis tool for what you need for your product. So it helps to answer the question, are we developing the right product? That's step one, right? On the other hand, it's something that you can use to specify, right? So you go deep. Is it really like that? So you can write this down in kind of a formal language, which is called Gherkin, which is a kind of a specification language, but it's a communication tool. And the third aspect is that you can then automate these. Usually people start with the last step. So it takes some experience, and usually they do it wrong. It's not, BDD is not a test automation tool. It goes much deeper. So you can test automate your stuff with that. And as a big benefit of BDD, you get, first of all, you get a specification, and you get what we call a living documentation. So it's a documentation that you get, and it will always stay updated because it's linked to your code through test scenarios. So this is an absolutely cool tool. So in my team, we use it, we actively use it. All the stuff that we develop, we start by specifying first, what do we actually need? Is it really that what the user wants, what our client wants? We check with the client, and then only we start developing and automating it. So it's an approach that allows us to automate the test at the same time as we're actually developing the functionality. So this is an approach that decouples you from that sequential development flow, right? So from experience, really absolutely cool, right? And yeah, hope that answered your question.
It did. Thank you.
All right. So guys, are there more questions? We have 4 minutes. Use me. All right, if there are no questions left. So it was nice talking about these topics. It would be even nicer if we could meet again, maybe this weekend in my training courses. So if not this weekend, so I'm always training for Simpliaxis. You can always find me there. And if that's all, I thank you very much and see you next time. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.